everyone. Welcome to Carolyn Talks. This is the podcast / YouTube channel where I, your host, Carolyn, I speak to film creatives around the world about their work, the industry, and what inspires them. And today is one of my interviews for the 2024 New York Asian Film Festival. I don't know why I'm flubbing myself, but so it is. And today I'm very happy to be joined by the lead actor, lead actress of the film Suppose, which is a Thai romantic drama. But I think it's just as much as about romance as it is about self-discovery in the age of Instagram and Twitter. And we're joined by actor and Ananda Everingham, actress.
You got it.
I don't know why. Actress Chayanit Chansangaji, and the film is directed by Thanakorn Pongsuwan, who unfortunately can't join us because he passed away in 2020. So rest in peace to him. But thank you so much for joining us. And for our interpreter, he is joining us here today. Yay! So thank you all three of you for joining. And so my first question for the both of you, I mentioned that this film is very much more about self-discovery than it is actually about romance. So my first question is going to be for Ananda, because your character Non, he's interesting to me because his character's name is Non, and I was trying to find if there was a meaning for the name Non in Thai, because I know like Thai names have very deep meanings, and I know in Thai culture names are very specific. Even the nicknames that parents give to their children is very specific at birth. But the name he chooses, Non, isn't the nickname that his parents give him. This is the name he gave for his online persona. So, and I saw it more as the name Non being representative of him having a very nondescript persona as an individual. He doesn't know who he is. You know, he doesn't know what he wants. He doesn't know what he's looking for. So he's kind of like a blank sheet of paper. So I wanted to ask you about how you and director Thanakorn like worked around discovering who Non was as a character for you to play, but then who Non would be as a character for the people that he would be interacting with, because no one really knows him.
Yeah. Thanks for that. I mean, you know, the film was made 7, nearly 8 years ago. It's good to hear that at this point you might know just as much as I do about the character, to be honest. It's nice to recall how we came about Non's character. In the beginning, when I first read the script, I felt that for the director, it was like an extension of his existential questions about himself and Bangkok, and his meaning in his career and in his environment. And so in the beginning, there were many details about Non that didn't quite exist in the script the first time I read it. And so being that I would have to be acting this character, the director and I spoke a lot about, who this person was, how he lived his life, and even the idea that he's this character who's having a bit of a identity crisis. We still had to give the character some kind of something grounding, right? So we had to like agree on like, what his daily routines were, what his job was. But what we added to the script that was that came from a discussion between me and the director was that his dating ritual. So his dating ritual would be about finding some kind of character that he would portray for this new person, or whoever new person he would meet. And that was kind of representative of the character who is going through this like this existential crisis. And so this changes when he meets
Dream. I call her Dream because we don't really get a character name for her.
That's character. So the idea is that like in the loneliness of his life in Bangkok, he finally connects to somebody,
Mm.
the first time, and that's kind of the premise of his character in this film.
Mm. And for Pat, your character I kind of saw as very similar to Non, even though their introductions are very different, because Non seems like he's searching for himself. Whereas Dream, like on her Instagram page, she seems to know who she is, like she's very open, she's very honest, she doesn't pose for, I realize that for the pictures that she posts, she doesn't show her whole face. It's always either her eyes, part of her face, she shows back, she's showing people pieces of her, but no one ever really gets to see the full her, like a puzzle. She has to be sorted together. And I saw her as the same way as Non, because Non knows that he doesn't know who he is. And Dream puts on this persona that she knows exactly who she is, that she's telling the world exactly who she is. But if you really pay attention to her, she doesn't know, she herself is searching for who she is as well. So I want you to talk to me about playing Dream, and like perhaps what do you think about the character now that some years have gone by, and how you see her as like how she's changed over the years for you as the actor who played her. Take your time.
เป็นยากกว่าไม่นานอะไร
ไอ้คือไอ้
it's like
เขา analyze มาดีมากเลยนะเขาบอกว่าเราสองคนอ่ะเป็นคาแรคเตอร์เหมือนคาแรคเตอร์เหมือนกันเลยเพียงแต่ว่าไอเดียมันแสดงออกเหมือนแบบรู้จักตัวเองแล้วทั้งที่ไม่รู้
แล้วก็ยัง searching กำลังค้น
แต่
หาน
นท์ก็แบบออกตัวเหมือนแบบ
กำลังค้นหา
yeah
แต่จริงๆแล้วทั้งสองคนเหมือนกันว่ากำลังค้นหาอะไรเหมือนกันแล้วผ่านเวลามาจนถึงตอนนี้แล้วเนี่ย
it's been 8 years
she keeps saying that she could never do this character ever again
because it's been 8 years
like I was like 19
she's
when I'm almost 30
she's
right now.
old and jaded now is her point
That's the way she looks at you. Why would you say that? How dare you?
Like, yeah, it's a change. My voice, a change. My face and my body has changed as well. And ไม่เคยคิดมาก่อนเลย
แต่ตอนที่รู้สึกแบบตัวละครกลับไปตอบคำถามของตัวละครก็ได้นะว่าแบบคิดว่าเป็นอย่างที่เขาตีความไหมว่ามันแบบค้นหามันพยายามค้นหาอยู่ทั้งที่จริงๆแล้วมันไม่มั่นใจในตัวเอง
มันคือวัยรุ่นมันคือวัยรุ่นวัยเสียงไม่ได้ว่าได้วัยรุ่นที่แบบสัตว์ต่างเองคือ teenager fresh and free yeah
like back then I was a teenager and I was confident I was having fun I know what I want I was just doing it as a teenager so that's a character that I'm thinking yeah like I know what I want I was just having fun but now when you look back into that now that you were saying it that you're almost 30 how
sad
คิดว่า
it's like I've thrown you into your own existential crisis in the moment
มันนานมากมันยากมาก
ไม่แต่ดูตอนนี้รู้สึกยังไงกับมันนะคาแรคเตอร์เนี่ยพอดูตอนเนี้ย
I don't know I can't believe this anymore
yeah she saying that she can't do this character anymore because that age is done
it's not a teenage energy and like innocence eyes I can't do this anymore
yeah and I understand that I'm 40 now myself and I think back to the things that I was able to do like even the way that I thought about the world has changed drastically I couldn't look at situations from my past the way that I look at them now because I've changed like the world around me has changed so I understand what you're saying because the way you would have approached the character then is not the way you would approach the character now like your life experience informs the way you would portray the character so I get that and that's I'm actually kind of fitting because the film is very much about that the film is very much about how we approach the world as we see it and Dream is interesting to me because while I see Non as almost he's trying to be a social chameleon where he's always copying the things that people do because he's trying to figure out what would make him more interesting. Dream hides the most interesting parts of herself, but what she projects to the world is just a persona as much as Non is as a persona. Non is kind of like a performer. He's an actor. He puts on these little skits for the women that he interacts with. You know, he's trying to be suave, then he's trying to be caring, then he's trying to be tender. But Dream has this one big performance that she's putting on, which is the carefree young girl, you know. And I'm just like, there's nothing carefree about you. You have trauma, clearly. You suffer with survivor's guilt. You know, you suffer with being lonely, and she suffers with not being known. I think for us as humans, one of the most scariest things is not finding someone who really understands us and gets us and accepts us for that.
She was just saying that you know the film better than we do at this point.
It has been 8 years. I get it.
No, but if the director was here to hear you say all of that, and you're spot on. I mean, these were all the conversations that I had with the director before we started shooting, and these were the things that we wanted to convey through the film. And he'd be so happy to hear this from you, actually.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Because I love films like this where like the characters seem simple, and I kind of found it ironic because in the description on the website it says that it's considered an ordinary romance. And I'm just like, but we as human beings, what we consider ordinary is not ordinary, because the things that makes us are extraordinary, you know. Like I saw non like his penchant for mimicking and copying people is actually, it's not creepy. It's interesting because it shows that he pays attention to the people around him. It's just that he doesn't know how to make that not look creepy to other people, you know. And Dream, she's clearly suffering from trauma, but she's like, that's something we all like have to contend with, you know. What, like, the causes may be different, but we all have to contend with that. And I want to ask you, Ananda, is for Non, what was it about Non that drew you to this character? Because it's almost like you're an actor playing an actor who doesn't know he's an actor, you know, in a sense. He doesn't see what he's doing as acting, but that's basically what he is.
Yeah.
Do you remember?
Yeah. I don't remember all the details. In like, it feels a bit like a bit of a dream, the whole making of this film. But what I do remember quite specifically is the director. And before we had even started working on this film, the director and I were quite close, and so we would hang out and we would chit chat about film, and we're both cinephiles, and I had mentioned to him, like, you know, like, at any point you have something interesting, please, you know, like, please come to me, and I'd love to be in one of your films. And even with this film, I had read the script, but we hadn't spoken about me being in the film. And so the more we spoke about the film, he finally approached me and he said, like, you know, I think you know, I'd like you to be in this film. And in the beginning, my questions were more about Non's motives, because in the first draft of the film, there weren't these specific details that you just mentioned about, like, you know, how Non mimics other people and you know, acts a certain way when he's, you know, like, when in front of in public and so on. And in a sense, I and the director had introduced this idea to the script afterwards, because we felt that I felt that it was something that was like him himself, the director, you know. Felt like this character Non is kind of an extension of the questions the director had about himself and living in Bangkok and so on. And so the thing that I felt drew me most to the character in the film itself is not just the character, but the vibe of the film as a whole. Yeah, I like that whole kind of like, like lonely, artsy, existential phase in life. I feel everybody goes through that phase, and to romanticize it a bit, I quite like that, and so I was thinking of films like, like Lost in Translation and stuff like that. And, like something like, like lazy and sexy and romantic and lonely. And so that was the main reason that I wanted to be part of the film. But to be honest, a lot of the scenes were very free and improvised. So to say that this was all in the script was not really not quite accurate.
Oh, that's interesting. Was it the reason that he let the both of you like improvise for the film, especially for a film like this? Was it because like the nature of the film lends for that, where it's more about the emotions and the circumstances that the characters are in, rather than strictly following a definite like particular plot of story? Like for instance, like an action film has to have very specific types of like plots and scenes happening, because you have to be careful with how you film and that kind of stuff. Whereas for a film like this, you're kind of just like going along with the mood of the characters, like how they themselves would behave. Like Dream, she's a carefree character, and so she's very open to being spontaneous in the moment. So is it that because of those because the characters are like that it gives you the opportunity to be more open with each other and like improvise in the scenes?
คิดว่ามัน
A lot
เป็น
of improvement.
คิดว่ามันเป็นเพราะแบบมันเป็นสไตล์ของหนังแบบนี้ไหมที่เขาปล่อยให้เราได้แบบ improvise กัน เพราะว่าเรื่องมันนำมาจากความรู้สึก emotion ต่างๆ มากกว่าแบบมีบทมีอะไรล็อกไว้เหมือนแบบหนังแอคชั่นอะไรเงี้ยมันก็จะมีบทอย่างเป๊ะๆอะไรเงี้ยแต่คิดว่ามันเป็นสไตล์ของหนังไหมที่เขาปล่อยให้เรา improvise ว่าเป็นสไตล์กำกับของ
I think it's because of director. You.
He trusted you, because I think like in order for a director to let his cast improvise, that means that he trusts you, and he trusts you with the characters and the story.
Improvise. It's quite free.
Yeah, I think like he had like a certain visual language that he had already had in mind for the film, and so I think he wasn't so obsessed or anal about the dialogue itself. And being the film, you can feel like it's quite intimate, the way it's shot, it's handheld, and so I think his concern was in terms of direction itself. I think it was more on that side, and he wanted the characters to just exist in this environment that he's created. So yeah, it was very conducive to improvising, and I think it was fun actually. It was the fun part of being on set, was that we didn't quite know what was going to happen every day. Being in it.
So Pat said like the director always told her to kind of keep it secret. Don't show too much or something, like keep it like secret.
Okay, I get that. Yeah, play close to the vest.
Yeah.
Okay, and so and something that was really interesting to me about this film, now that you said a lot of it was improvised, is how heavily social media features into the story, especially the use of like social media and Instagram. And like the film was made some years ago, and social media has changed drastically just within the last few years. Like so much of our lives is online now. And for Dream, for Dream, I want to ask you, Pat, as women in particular, how we present ourselves on social media has to be very careful. You know, like we want to show just enough so people are interested in us, but not too much so that they don't become too connected to us, because like there's like cyber stalking and cyberbullying and harassment and all these things going on. And I kind of saw Dreams, her online persona, as not only as a shield for her mental state, because she's wary of getting to know new people, but she's doing it because she's also aware of the dangers that social media posts. Because like their first interaction, she basically does reconnaissance on Non, you know. She's like, I'm gonna turn up to this place that I know you are so that I can see how you behave in public right before I actually officially meet you. And that just made me think of how, like, yeah, this is as women, like when we're going somewhere, we text our friends, you know, and say, this is where I'm going, this is who I'm going with, you know, because we have to take that extra step to be careful. So I want you to talk about not only because of Dream in that perspective, but just how for you as an actress and as a model have to be also very careful with your social media presence, and how the film kind of like leans into that in a very subtle way. Because I think if people who aren't familiar with how women behave aren't really going to get the way that she did specific things with Non. So I want you to talk a bit about that.
วันนี้ถามตัวแพทเลยนะอาจจะว่าโซเชียลมีเดียรู้สึกไงโซเชียลมีเดียว่าผู้หญิงอะรู้สึกว่าบางทีต้องปกป้องเหมือนกันแบบไม่ได้เปิดเผยหมดเหมือนตัวละครที่ตอนแรกก็ไม่ได้บอกนนท์คือแอบดูอยู่ก่อนอะไรเงี้ยแบบคิดสำหรับตัวแพทรู้สึกยังไงสำหรับเราไม่ได้เป็นแบบนั้นหนีหายไปแล้วสำหรับเราไม่ได้เป็นแบบนั้นเราก็ทำแบบไว้เป็นอ๋อในโซเชียลมีเดียในโซเชียลมีเดียไว้เป็นแบบ I'm quite open on social media. I am not quite like dear. Dear. So I'm sorry. The character name is Dear.
Is Dear? Why do I keep calling her Dream? Oh, because of her thing name is
yes,
Dream.
yes.
That's why.
Yeah. So she said she's not quite like Dear. For her, she's quite open.
I think Dear, she trying to create a character. She might have so many accounts as well. Like, you know.
Dear might have so many accounts.
I think,
so in different accounts might have different characters.
Mm.
And
she want to be
want to be different persons, and then you know each person will see her in different angles of her.
Yeah.
And but for yourself, Pat,
I don't know. I don't mean like that. Quite free.
ก็อย่างแพท
Quite free on it.
ในโซเชียลมีเดียใกล้ตัวจริงมัน
yes,
You're the same.
for her, social media is the same as like when you see her on social media, it's just like her. You know who she is, and you know there's no secrets, and that's who she is.
I'm the exact same way. I use my Instagram. I post a lot of pictures about when I travel and my work, but on my Twitter, I'm very vocal. I talk about politics, you know, the things about life, and like that's me. So I completely get it. I used to be like more reserved, but I tell people how I am on social media is exactly how I am in person. It's like that's like I don't put on any ears or personas. But for Dear, with Dream, she puts on that's why I also say she's also very similar to Non, even though she thinks that she's not. Like they both put on personas for people. Like they don't really ever let anyone get to truly know who they are. And I think that's what makes these two characters very interesting to me, because they're enigmas, you know, like they're like they're like two puzzles trying to fit into each other, and like they can't really fit because they don't even realize that they're puzzles themselves, you know, like they just keep butting up instead of fitting together. So that's why I think that's why I really like these characters.
I'm so happy that you've really touched upon the layers of the film that may not be that obvious, but like I was saying, if the director was around to hear your analysis of the film, he'd be really happy to hear this.
And it makes me happy.
Better than us.
Yeah, I'm the kind of person, I'm always very curious about the things that characters do and why directors make characters do the things they do, because they're just like I always see film in particular as just a way for us as human beings to relate to each other without directly having to do it. You know, the film is the medium of which we get to like talk about human behavior and culture when we're not able to like really actually explain it. Like film to me is an explainer of human behavior and culture. You know, like I'm always like, this director gets it. They break it down a bit more easier than they could explain.
Yeah, and to be honest, a film like this is quite hard to find in Thailand. And he was one of the few directors that could has this aesthetic and this style that kind of really is conducive to telling this type of story.
Yeah, because I think to me, like the film that I thought of is, of course, everyone would think of Before Sunset, you know, like that series of films by Richard Linklater. But there's a film that I watched very recently called Saigon Kiss. It's a Vietnamese film. It's a short film, and the characters kind of like almost have the same. They don't behave the same, but they have this whole thing of like they enter into each other's lives for a season. Like, will they actually get to meet each other again at the end? We don't know. It's kind of an ambiguous ending, and it's the same way with these characters in this film. Like, will she come back? You know, and if she comes back, will she be able to relate to him the same way that she did? You know, and if she's changed, will he have changed? You know, will he have grown as a person, and will he still be searching for who he is? You know, like, so I like those films like where it's just like really, to me, I'm always like, I want them to grow. You know, I want the best for the characters. I hope that when Dare went off, she went off to heal. You know, and she didn't just went off to pretend to be somebody that she's not. That she actually said, you know what, I have issues and I need to start this up.
And to be honest, I think I never had this specific conversation with the director himself, but I think he had something in the past that inspired some event, some incident in his life, something romantic or heartbreaking or something that happened in his life that inspired the characters in this film. And in fact, I feel like Non's character is kind of an extension of him, maybe, you know, like in his 20s or something like that. But I'm pretty sure it stems from something real that happened in his life.
And for you, have you had something real like that in your life where you're just like thinking, it's been 8 years, time has passed, where you be like, you know what, this person, and it doesn't have to be romantic. It could be just like a friend or someone that you met that they came into your life to help you see the world a bit differently, you know, to help you start out and say, this is something in myself that I need to confront and change. And they exit out, but the impact they left is still resonating with you, you know?
I mean, I'm pretty sure everybody has their, you know, their lonely, romantic, existential crisis at some point in life. I remember having a moment where I would write Jeff Buckley lyrics to like to somebody I was pining over.
Random. Jeff Buckley.
I don't feel like I'd want to go back there anymore. But yeah, I drew for this character. I drew from some of those moments where I don't know if you remember a song called Lover You Should Have Come Over.
If I hear it, I probably remember it. I'm terrible at remembering.
Go listen to the lyrics of that. It's it's very pining, but that was kind of part of the inspiration for this character as well. Like this type of character who would like sit at home by himself and just listen to Jeff Buckley, listen to Lover You Should Have Come Over. มันแบบเป็นนักร้องแบบเวิ้นมากคนหนึ่งที่แบบแค่บอกว่าเราก็มีวัยเวิ้นของเราเหมือนกันอะไรเงี้ยก็เหมือนคล้ายๆหนังเรื่องเนี้ย
Oh my gosh. It's making me think of the song by Toni Braxton, Love Should Have Brought You Home. Where she's thinking about the same thing. She's like, I'm home waiting for you and love should have brought you home, but you all doing your own thing. And for you, Pat, have you had any instances like that where someone came into your life and helped you to see the world or our situation a bit differently, and like how that may have left a lasting impact on you?
ในชีวิตจริงนะมีในช่วงชีวิตที่มีคนเข้ามาแล้วก็ออกไปแล้วทำให้แบบเกิดการเปลี่ยนแปลงอะไรบางอย่าง
romantically นะ
romantically
yeah romantically yeah.
Be romantic. Pay him any money. It doesn't
No,
have
I
to.
want to know romantic
You want to know?
no, like
อาจจะไม่ต้องใครที่เปลี่ยนอะไรบางอย่างใน
ก็เล่า
You
ให้
like
ฟัง
spill the tea?
เนี่ยแฟนเฟิร์นอะไรมีอะไรมาบ้างปะเนี่ย No, I'm just trying to get her to spill the beans because we haven't met in a long time.
Mhm.
So I was just like, maybe you should.
spill the tea to you
She's not gonna spill the tea. Okay.
I'm gonna spill the tea I have one uh ไม่ค่อยมี experience เยอะเกี่ยวกับแบบ romantic vibe
อะไรก็ได้ที่แบบเข้ามาแล้วรู้สึกมันเปลี่ยนเรา
ไม่ต้องเปลี่ยนนะ
yeah he cheated on me
I should not laugh. How dare he?
let's
How
check
dare he? Yeah, and when stuff like that happens, it does change you because it makes you look at people differently. Yeah, it makes you be a bit more cautious and a bit more suspicious. Yeah, it makes you doubt yourself. It makes you like, what? I'm like, how did I not see? Yeah, yeah, and because some years have passed, how do you think I want to ask you both now, because I think we're gonna have to wrap this soon. Like, how have you both grown up as performers since this film, since your time making this film? Like, what has changed for you fundamentally as a performer?
Me, you first.
เปลี่ยนแปลง
As
ใจ
an
ใน
actor
ตัวเรา
wow
ใน8 ปีที่ผ่านมาไม่หมายถึงแบบในจากทุกวันนี้รู้สึกว่าแบบเป็น actor ที่
we might have to wrap
Okay,
up
I'll go quickly then.
Yeah.
I've since that film, I'm now. It was early 30s for me when we were making that film. I'm now early 40s. So for me, I guess more than anything, like I'm not as anxiety ridden as I used to be, and so I as an actor, I approach a lot of my work with less anxiety. I have more fun with it, to be honest. Like all the well, not all the existential questions have gone, but I mean, like I've let go of a lot. So acting for me has become, in a sense, a bit more liberating than it used to be.
And for you, Pat?
you're yes yeah
because I did the film when I was 19, right? So right now everything's
Almost
changed.
everything changed
I'm not the same anymore. I'm a grown up.
you're
And
grown up
And but how have you're grown up as a person, but what about your as a performer? How has your life in maturing changed how you look at your work as a performer?
ร่างกายมันสำคัญนะครับต่อให้ตอนเนี้ยอยู่ acting ได้หรือว่าหน้าตามันไม่สามารถที่จะเป็นคนดูก็ไม่เชื่อว่าอยู่เป็นถึงผู้ชายในตรงนี้เข้าใจปะ
so like your appearance, like your look, also telling how old are you, and now the physical, it's not the same anymore. So it's making her realize that it's not the same because
อยู่โตขึ้นมาเป็นยังไง
because
รู้สึกว่าแบบ
I cannot do the same anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
maybe no one got
คือตอนนี้แบบ Can I
Like-
my interpretation
No
is
one
this. When I first met her, she was very young, and and a lot of the conversations we had, I knew I was speaking to somebody who was, in a sense, even similar to the character, in a sense where she was trying to like convey somebody who was older.
Hmm.
And now 8 years later, she's had these experiences. The maturity is entirely different. Because when I met her recently, we've met very briefly over the years, but recently when I met her, yeah, she's a completely different person.
It's good that you change.
I can only make the assumptions what she's been through, but she's been through something. Something's changed there.
The last 4 years have changed all of us. Like who we were in 2020 is not who we were now. I know we have to wrap it up, but thank you so much for joining me. This was actually a really fun interview. I wish I could have been there in person, maybe next year. But thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
So everyone, that was another episode of Carolyn Talks, and this was my interview with actor Ananda Everingham, who played the character of Non, and actress Chayanit, who played the character of Dare. For some reason, who I kept Carolyn Dream. That was the name she had on her social media. That's the name that kept popping up on the screen. So that's how I kept thinking of her. But this was a really fun interview. I wish I could have been in New York to do these interviews in person. Perhaps next year, finances will be better. Fingers crossed. But this was a really fun interview. This was for their film, Suppose, and this was its North American premiere at New York Asian Film Festival. The film has shown previously in Thailand and across Asia, but this was its North American premiere. And it was written, directed, and produced by Thanakorn Pongsuwan, who, as I mentioned at the beginning, couldn't join us because he unfortunately died in 2020. But this was one of his posthumous films released, and this was one of his 3 films that was released posthumously after his death. And I really love this film. I love films like this where the characters just seem so similar to who we are as people. Like it feels like someone and like we are all people who are searching to figure out who we are, who we want to be, who we want people to see us as. Like, who is my online persona going to be who I am? Am I who my online persona actually is? It's about people who project what they think they want the world to see and what they think the world wants to see of them. And like that in itself could be very harmful to us because it makes us doubt who we are as people. It makes us doubt, like, think that we're not good enough. So there's all of that happens with these characters of Non and Dare. And yes, there's a romance in there, but I really do think it's about these characters discovering who they are as people. And I think it's really interesting, and it's a really nice, easy film. It's not methodically paced, but it just feels like it's following a very natural timeline. So it's very easy watch. So if you can, watch it. And you'll find this interview and others for this year's New York Asian Film Festival here on the podcast and on my YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/@Carolyn_Hines. You can go to my R3 page. That's my digital portfolio, R3, AUTHORY.com/Carolyn Hines. Find links to all of the YouTube channel, all of the YouTube videos there, all of the podcasts there, all of my written work. Coverage for the African American Film Critics Association is on my YouTube channel there. Coverage for K-Crush America, coverage for Joy Sauce, coverage for Mediaversity Reviews. All of that stuff has been there. I haven't really written in a while because I've been having issues with my hands, so typing has been painful. So I've been doing mostly like the podcast and YouTube interviews. So I can't remember what my last published piece was. I think it was my interview for Mediaversity Reviews that I did for a BritBox show called 3 Little Birds, and that's there. So you'll find that there as well. And so until the next, and you can find me on Twitter and Instagram, and speaking about social media, @Carrie, CNH12, that's CARRIE, CNH12, and that's on Twitter and Instagram. So until the next episode of Carolyn Talks, everyone, stay safe. Bye.